The entire legacy media is all aflutter this morning about Michelle Obama's speech that was pre-recorded for Quid Pro Joe, and well, they should be. I think it will go down in history as the high watermark for Quid Pro Joe. This is the farthest he can go. After this, he gets drawn back to Earth. Let's take a look at this from NBC. Michelle Obama delivers scathing indictment of Trump at the 2020 DNC. You see, even at the DNC, this headline that's supposed to be endorsing Sleepy Joe, what's the headline about? President Trump. It goes on. The former First Lady says it's obvious the president is not up to the job and called on Americans to vote for change. And the caption in the picture, Michelle Obama tells Americans, vote for Biden like our lives depend on it. Let's go on with a little bit of this story from NBC. Michelle Obama delivered a scathing indictment of President Donald Trump's policies and character Monday on the first night of the all-virtual Democratic National Convention. Michelle found it easier in her speech to slam President Trump than she did to endorse Sleepy Joe. You think I'm wrong? Well, in the beginning of her speech, she starts out saying how great America is. And she goes on, talks about George Floyd and others, and she mentions that George Floyd and others are part of a never-ending list of innocent people of color who continue to be murdered. She identifies George Floyd as an innocent person of color who was murdered. Let that sink in. Oh, and that wasn't the least of her stupidities. She talks about how the beer flu caused unemployment. Not the Democratic governors who shut down the economy. It was the beer flu. And she talks about peaceful protesters. She doesn't mention about how BLM has been the direct cause now for over 30 deaths, how they've burned and looted and destroyed property. She even mentions in passing illegal aliens as something that is good, and about how her going high doesn't mean being nice. I mean, you can bite and punch and scrape and be as bad as you want as long as you're scraping your way to the top. She finally does get around to mentioning Quid Pro Joe for the first time in about, almost 11 and a half minutes into her speech. And she talks about him for a full 3 minutes. And then goes on to ignore him until the very end when she says to vote for him. So yeah, this may very well be Quid Pro Joe's high watermark in that he's never mentioned. And when he is mentioned, that 3 minutes, it was all platitudes. She didn't mention a single policy he stood up for, a single thing he will change under his administration. It was just all Orange Man bad. Speaking of the Orange Man, let's see his take on last night. No, I am not going to join Twitter. You're going to see that blue bar there. Somebody please explain to Michelle Obama that Donald J. Trump would not be here in the beautiful White House if it weren't for the job done by your husband, Barack Obama. Biden was merely an afterthought, a good reason for the very late and unenthusiastic endorsement. My administration and I built the greatest economy in history of any country. Turned it off, saved millions of lives, and now I'm building an even greater economy than it was before. Jobs are flowing. NASDAQ is already at a record high. The rest to follow. Sit back and watch. This man is savage. Looking back into history, the response by the Obama team to the H1N1 swine flu was considered a weak and pathetic one. Check out the polling, it's really bad. The big difference is that they got a free pass from the corrupt fake news media. Yes, let's compare the H1N1 to the beer flu and see which administration comes out smelling sweeter. And finally, the Obama-Biden administration was the most corrupt in history, including the fact that they got caught spying on my campaign. The biggest political scandal in the history of our country. It's called treason and more. Thanks for your very kind words, Michelle. So, President Trump strikes back at Michelle Obama's speech. The only thing he could have added to improvement was to say something about those peaceful protesters and Michelle Obama's continuous playing of the race card.